I'm sitting with Hannah Israel. She is our guest co-curator for the exhibition. Hannah, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the show came to be? We started working on it at the Columbus Museum several years ago. How did you and our curator decide to do this particular kind of show?
Well, one of the initial ideas of bringing in video art in Columbus was the impetus for this exhibition, and only because video art is such a young genre for a community that is not really or have not known this form of art. And since I work at Columbus State University, one of our mission for our students is to introduce contemporary trends. And so when I approached the Columbus Museum, and it's been such a great time working with the curator, which is Kristen Zohn. One of our, I feel like both of our interests lies in how video art is sort of shaping the landscape and the way we think about art in reflection to its own history. You know, so I believe that the group of artists in this exhibition sort of encompasses that notion of how it's actually changing those trends, but in a very subtle way. And part of that, using landscape as a departure, as a subject matter, as a way to collect imagery through what people understand the most, which is their surrounding.
Right, and I think it was really interesting for us to do it in the first place because we've had video art as part of other exhibitions, but we've never done a full video exhibition. And landscapes are part of everybody's everyday lives. Every time they look out of the window or every time they're driving in their car. So we felt like people could understand the concept of landscape, and if they could understand the concept of the subject matter, maybe then they can expand their mind to think about video art as well, because we're also used to looking at television screens and movie screens in our home, but those are more narrative things, and video art tends to be more of an aesthetic experience rather than a narrative storytelling experience. So we thought maybe if people understood what a landscape was in the first place, they could also understand it as a video piece when they're looking at the show.
Right. Also, I think it's a reflection on how we see paintings, for example, or just picture in general, in sort of this format, you know. And it's a really interesting reflection how you had explained the connection with just landscape painting, for example, and how somebody might view the video in a different sense, because there's a time-based factor that's not present visually in painting. And also the notion of like how video has asked so much more from the viewer because it is time sensitive.
Right, you have to sit and really watch it. And I think maybe normal in the videos that we see in our everyday life, there's a narrative to kind of keep us watching because we want to know what happens next in the story. And so that's why it's maybe a little bit more difficult for people to, in this very hectic life that we're living, to actually slow down and look and give it the time it needs. I think that the statistics are that people stand in front of a painting for 30 seconds.
Right.
You stand in front of a video for 30 seconds, you're just not going to get the whole thing.
Right.
Some of them last a minute, some of them in this exhibition last 2 minutes, some last 10 minutes. So you really have to kind of give it more effort than possibly just being able to just run past a painting and decide in the first second whether you like it or not. You really have to give it more time. Yeah.
There's also, I think that I found interesting between video and painting is also the importance of media in our society, and for example cinema, and how we can create those dialogue between between something still and something that's sort of like moving, and how narrative is also interplays with that. In some of the videos that we have here, sort of, there's a narrative sense to it, but the narrative is created most of the time by the audience. You know?
Right, bringing their own ideas to it.
Right.
And also kind of discovering it slowly, that it's not really in your face, the narrative's not so in your face, you have to kind of discover that it does actually exist there. And then we tried to make a good combination between pieces that had sound and didn't have sound. pieces that were more single channel or single image videos, and then a more installation piece. So behind us we have Danielle Merrill's three-piece, three-projection piece, and then the Aoshi's is an installation piece with sculptural objects as well.
Right.
So this is kind of a good overview as to what you'd expect at a video show.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's talk a little bit about pieces in particular.
Yes.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Kristen.
Wow, that was great.